And we are back with an all-new episode of Keep It. I'm Ira Madison III.
I'm Louis Fortell, and how is everyone's radical optimism today? Is it up? Is the glass half full of, ketamine? Because that's what this music reminds me of yet again. It's my only musical comparison anymore. I'm sorry.
You know what? It is a very funny contrast to having been at Dua Lipa's Met Gala after party last night.
Oh, pardon me. Should I leave? You can just talk about this yourself? Okay.
Which was playing the ounce, okay? Like, it was actually not the kind of after party you'd expect. It was kind of like giving rave vibes.
Oh, weird.
And I was like, well, girl, if you like rave so much, it's talking about Basement on Las Culturistas. Where is it on this album?
It is a very sun-kissed album and therefore a little bit sleepy, which, by the way, is part of the languor we associate with Dua Lipa. I'm somewhat happy to get it, but otherwise, and we've waited a long time for this album, the album itself is just not calling to me to replay it again and again, and I keep prompting myself to do that because I want this to be as addictive an album as the last one. There are a couple songs I love. These Walls is probably my favorite one.
That's a great song.
And End of an Era, which is the first song on the album. But otherwise, it's okay. I don't know. It's like a B- for me. Maybe a C+.
She kicks off the album with End of an Era really good. The same way Future Nostalgia was like a great start to the album, the title track.
Which, by the way, is a radical opinion on both of our behalves, that we both love that song. It seems like people hate the song Future Nostalgia, but I love that song.
This album feels very, I don't know, I found it to be a very safe album for her in a way, because it's Danny Harl producing, and he does like hyper pop shit, like he's worked with Charlie XCX and all those people. And then you also have Kevin Parker of Tame Impala. And it's just, when I think of those artists, I'm always thinking of parties I've been to, raves I've been to, music festivals like Primavera Sound in Barcelona, where it's just, you're having fun and you're just sort of going crazy on the dance floor or in a crowd. And I don't know, the extended versions of like Houdini and Trading Season, they feel fun. They have a little funk to them and extended breaks, like dance breaks or whatever. But the album just doesn't feel like she was letting loose enough. It feels like it was trimmed down.
Yeah, I like her vocal on the album. Like, I think it suits the kind of swimminess of the vibe. That said, I would say this album to me is like what Gwen Stefani's The Sweet Escape is compared to Love Angel Music Baby, which is there are fewer hooks. It feels like it's related to that album, but at the same time, it feels like the second tier of ideas below what we got previously. Like, maybe this is just all outtakes from her previous sessions,
Yeah. It's sort of similar in a way to Tortured Poets in that I like quite a bit of the songs on this now, but it truly has happened by... It's a vibe album, obviously. This is going to be an album that I'm
not shutting it off. Right.
No.
For example, if I'm at the Ace in Palm Springs near a pool and I'm like doing my Little Mermaid choreography in the pool, sure, keep it on.
It's definitely going to get play in Fire Island.
Right.
Someone could you could put this on.
They'll play anything there. Not much of a compliment. Go ahead.
They're not playing everybody.
Yeah, I guess. They'll remix anything into submission. Who cares? Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's definitely, I've gotten into some of the songs like French Exit.
I think that's okay.
But I've gotten into it because the album has been on repeat. And so while I'm doing chores at home, it's definitely a good writing album for me, because I'm the kind of person who cannot really write in silence. And sometimes what I'll play is an album or a song like on repeat and what I'm familiar with, so that it just sort of blends into the background.
Got it.
And I've heard French Exit enough where I'm like, I like it.
That's where the compliments end.
That's like the vibe.
A stunted I like it. Got it.
It's so weird talking about this, and maybe we're being hypocritical, but I don't know. I like her.
Oh, no.
And I think that is going a long way toward me wanting to like the album, because I like her. And I guess in contrast to Taylor Swift's album, she was everywhere, you know? And Dua actually, we constantly joke about the bitch being on vacation all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, she was absent post Future nostalgia, you know?
Right.
And now she's back, and I wonder if she's just really gonna shift into, one thing people always forget about her is that she's British, right? And I think we kind of always expect, just because she had this big sort of new rules moment, and then Future nostalgia was huge, that she's one of our artists.
Right.
But she could just very well be big in the UK and not really give a fuck about the US anymore in the future.
Interesting. I will say, my final note on this album is, it's the kind of thing where I'm listening to it waiting to get a sort of adrenaline rush, and it pushes me back towards the music that did give me that. Like, I'm re-obsessed with that kind of woman off the Moonlight, what is that called? Moonlight Future Nostalgia, that album.
Girl, she released 90 versions of that album.
Yes, and then there was Club Future Nostalgia that had a version of that song. It's got me listening to Love Again. It's got me listening to half the songs on Future Nostalgia. Yeah,
of hers.
Great stuff. Love Is Religion, I really love. So I'm a big fan of the catalog altogether, but I don't think any of these songs cracked my personal top 10 of Dua Lipa. And by the way, do you know what one of the best things she ever did was? That Elton John song you couldn't escape for a long time. I still think that's one of the best things she ever did.
I think maybe she'll do like a mini tour here or something. I think maybe some of these songs will sound better mixed in with the catalog.
And obviously she's about to become a sketch comedian based on what I saw her do on SNL.
She was really good.
I don't know about that.
I just love this woman. Okay, I give her so many
gorgeous, talented
points.
Girl. Love the Barbie song. Yes,
I give her so many points. We're going to talk about how just the sight of someone who's hot and gorgeous and famous can make you sort of change your opinions about them. Because we're going to talk about the Met Gala.
That's right.
This episode, and I definitely deleted a tweet where I made fun of someone's outfit because I saw that person in person at an after party last night, and they were so hot.
Oh, it is interesting to think about how these things translate in person as opposed to in the Getty image. Just like Kylie Minogue came wearing like something that was beaded with like millions of Swarovski crystals or something, whereas on camera to me it looked basic. Like it didn't look like that handiwork was in it, but in person I'm sure it was like straight up chandelier shit.
Rita Ora's her beads that she was wearing, you know, the dividers in your grandmother's home when you're going from the living room to the kitchen, they looked good in person.
And wait, she's the one who gave the comment about the beads she was wearing, said they were from like the 1st or 2nd century, and she said that makes them older than anybody living today. Woof, math and celebrities. Open the schools. Or homeschool her, Taika. I don't know what's going on there.
Also, she paid me dust.
Really?
My friend introduced me to her, and she was like, oh. And I'm like, the girl, she remembers tweets of mine.
Yeah, she's like, I'm going to do a backhand spring out of this situation.
Where's a gun?
God.
Speaking of guns, we're also going to talk about Drake versus Kendrick. I'm going to explain some rap beef to you later
thank
in
God.
This episode.
This is like the miracle worker. Like you will guide my hand toward the faucet as you explain this.
My favorite thing in the comments over the weekend were people constantly saying, I wonder how Louis is going to relate this rap beef to us. Is there some old Hollywood feud that feels reminiscent of this?
Oh, okay. We'll get into the Fontaine de Havilland of it all. I'm sure there's...
Yeah.
You know.
Where's an old Hollywood feud involving a biracial Canadian and a Black Israelite?
You know what? There are only a few of them, but I'm sure it was backstage on, some Cirque movie.
And today we will also be joined by the actress Sarayu Blue, who is in Expats opposite Nicole Kidman. She's fucking fantastic.
Also, I have not seen Nicole this perturbed in a long time. This is it goes in the great Nicole perturbed performances canon.
Hugh Grant didn't perturb her.
He's one of the great perturbers of our time. I don't mean to say he didn't.
All right. When we're back, more Keep It. All right, let's talk about beef, Louis. And I am not talking about the Netflix limited series.
Oh, God, I had my Ali Wong photo album already. God damn it.
I mean, she is always fighting.
Right. One time I did a stand-up night, and she was supposed to show up and perform. And then we were all waiting backstage, and she showed up, and then she said, I can't perform, and walked out. I'd never seen anything like that before. Anyway, seems like a nice girl.
At least she showed up.
I know. That was what was baffling. It was so strange. This was like 7 years ago.
So this involves Drake and Kendrick Lamar.
No, what is that? I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Obviously, over the weekend, Drake and Kendrick Lamar have been trading beefs, trading diss tracks, and there's been a lot going on. And I'm gonna try and attempt to explain why they hate each other so much.
Okay, and you believe you understand why?
I do understand why, because here's the thing: a lot of people do not like Drake.
Right. Yes. And I feel like that's been a growing unrest over the years, too.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think we've called him the male Taylor Swift before on this podcast. You know, he is the music industry in a way. When you think of like a male who's dominating it, it is truly him, aside from like a Harry Styles. You know, it's they're also very prone to, like she has with the Tortured Poets Department recently, like with these 2 a.m. drops, these bonus track albums, you know, they are both very much, we're dropping 30 songs at once and we're going to dominate streaming. We're going to dominate the charts. You know, he's always sort of at the top of his game.
And I feel like a part of this is also that I think there's a sense that Drake peaked a while ago. Like, I feel like everything since is sort of like mid-tier compared to like his Imperial era.
I feel like the tipping point for a lot of this was the fact that when the music was good and he was at the top of his game, people were just like sort of whatever. Like, what do you do to like the number one person in the game?
Yeah.
When people started feeling like the albums were kind of bad, I mean, For All the Dogs, his recent album has one good song on it, and it's the song with SZA and Sexy Red. People were sort of like, okay, now we can take shots at him because he's fallen off.
Yeah, it feels like we're longing for the days where he was at the club and also sad, which is, you know, a relatable combination.
Yeah, so basically Drake and Kendrick Lamar have worked together before, obviously. They've done tracks together. And then there was a Kendrick Lamar song called Control that he was on, where basically he raps about wanting to be the top of the game. You know, he names a bunch of rappers and the vibe is, these are all the people who are hot and I want to be better than them.
Got it.
And
it's like me going like Jon Favreau, Jon Lovett. They're all going down. Yeah.
I said top.
Aaron, Gloria, Ryan. Yes. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Aaron, there we go.
Yes.
But Drake, once again, comparison to Taylor Swift, cannot take a joke and takes himself far too seriously. And I feel like most people, you think if another rapper is name checking all these people that they want to be better than, wouldn't you sort of be happy that, oh, I'm included in this? He thinks that I'm one of the people who's at the top of the game. He wants to beat me. Like, it's friendly competition.
Well, I will say, if you get a compliment and there's even a hint of something backhanded about it, like, oh, you're really talented, but I could be better than you, I feel like that is the kind of comment that barbs somebody the most. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like it was almost flattering to me, but instead I feel there's a light deprecation about it. So I'm kind of relating to him for now.
Yeah. Drake, of course, responds to this. There's an interview where he says, listen, I'm at the top. Anybody wants to come for me, they can. I don't see it happening.
I've done the forecast and
yeah. And so it was friendly competition before, but then when Drake decides to actually take this personally, then it's sort of Kendrick is like, okay, well, maybe I didn't like you in the first place, bitch. And so this is why we now have a back and forth between them. And it's happened like on a bunch of tracks, but most recently on his awful album, For All the Dogs. There's a song, First Person Shooter, with him and J. Cole on it. And J. Cole talks about, you know, the big three in the game, and he mentions Kendrick, and Kendrick does not like this, and he responds to it. And basically, at some point, J. Cole decided he did not want to be a part of this entire beef, and he just sort of he apologized. I think you might remember when he like did a public apology and said, I don't want to do all this fighting. He was basically I don't want to stay around this. I'm just getting into this business.
Right.
Okay. It was Effie and Dina were going back and forth.
I was going to say, Brother, What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. Yes.
And so he did not want to be a part of that. And then we got basically a weekend where it was, I have never seen just like tracks drop like this in a weekend where it's, you're minding your own business, you're at the grocery store, you're picking out some Kraft macaroni and cheese, whatever, hamburger helper, I don't know, whatever you do.
You live in 1988, correct? Okay, go
ahead. Picking up some Lorna Doones.
Yeah. A Fig Newton or two. Yeah.
And these tracks just, they kept dropping them.
No, it was never the end. It was an avalanche.
Basically, it started with Kendrick Lamar jumping on Future and Metro Boomin's song Like That, where he said it's time for him to prove that he's a problem about Drake. Because basically, most people's problem with Drake is obviously he's biracial and we hate mixed people. You know, mulattoes are evil.
Okay.
I'm kidding. But it is the problem that he grew up in Canada. He's a former child actor. You know, he's Degrassi. He's the kid from that wheelchair.
Right.
You know, and when he raps, he really sort of gives this vibe of I'm a gangster, and it's not true.
Right. You're from Toronto, where they sell Reese's peanut butter cups in packs of 3. It's a safe upbringing.
Yeah, and so a lot of people have a problem with him in that respect. They also have a problem when you think about the fact that, you know, you think about The Weeknd, for instance. The Weeknd, he wanted The Weeknd to sign to his label at one point, and The Weeknd didn't sign to his label. So basically, he did a bunch of songs with The Weeknd and then sort of really just made him his. He has this thing of any sort of competition he sees in the industry, he like sort of like will collab with that person or snatch up a song of theirs and sort of like make it his own.
Feels very Regina George, keeping your enemies closer. I am so sorry to make a Mean Girls reference. I swear I am above that.
Also, he's a snaky hoe in the way that Art is in Challengers, because after that, he went after The Weeknd's girlfriend when he was dating Miss Hadid, if you recall. You remember A$AP Rocky, when A$AP Rocky was first involved with Rihanna, Drake was going after Rihanna as well. He sort of has this thing where he is also always going after his friends or people in the game's significant others.
I don't feel like that's a winning business strategy, ultimately.
Yeah. And so the tracks that happened were Drake finally responded to the Metro Boomin track Like That, which, by the way, has stayed on the Hot 100.
Yeah, right. Oh,
yeah.
Kendrick is doing very well on the Hot 100 right now.
Yeah. The other thing about the Kendrick tracks is when he's dropping them, they are charting. And that is also, I feel like, the biggest blow to Drake in this moment, because when Drake was releasing his best music, he was always on the Hot 100. He was always in the top 10. And now diss tracks about him are charting in the top 10. And it's sort of giving the idea that it's not just people in the industry who hate him. It is like people at home.
Right. Yes. The podcast listening population. Yes.
So he entered the fighting ring with his song called Push Ups on April 19th. And, you know, he rapped about Kendrick saying, "Pip squeak, pipe down, you ain't in no big 3." The thing about rap is that people are constantly ranking rappers online, like for decades. You know, there's always been, who's the big 3? You know,
right.
Even going back to like grade school, I remember people would always be like, well, who's your big 3 rappers? You know, that is just sort of this thing, you know, who you consider to be the big 3 at any given point in time. And that is why people are just always sort of going back and forth at each other. They're like, who is the big 3? You know?
Which I love. I mean, that's very Film Bros to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, like, name your top 3 of all time. Letterboxd, they do this. What's your top 4 all the time?
Yeah. Personally, none of these people are Jay-Z.
I see.
Who was in my big 3.
Madonna,
Kanye,
American Life, right?
Kanye before he died and had that brain transplant.
Right. Which is crazy to get the transplant after you've passed away.
Yeah, you know, some Days of Our Lives passion shit. So Push Ups is where Drake referenced the fact that Kendrick Lamar has songs with Maroon 5 and Taylor Swift.
All right.
If you recall Bad Blood, the video, I know it's a It's a hard memory to relive.
And I believe a video of the year winner.
Have you ever watched that video recently?
It looks like AI created it. I mean, it like the vision of it is so ridiculous. And like Mariska Hargitay is in it. Everybody's in it, of course.
If you rewatch that video, it is shocking to step back into that time of Taylor Swift's squad, as it were, as she constantly called it. The people who were in that she was collecting like Pokemon.
Yeah, no, there was no rhyme or reason. It was just everybody she had heard of, basically.
Lena Dunham, Zendaya in it before Zendaya blew up and became Zendaya.
Oh my gosh. Truly a moment in time because it's over.
Yeah. So he references that. And by the way, the funny part about all of this is that Drake has a song with Camila Cabello on Camila Cabello's upcoming album. And he's been allegedly keeping her from releasing it amidst the whole Kendrick beef. Because it would be embarrassing. But when we get to the other Kendrick songs, we'll find out it's maybe the least embarrassing thing about Drake this week.
I was going to say, more to come.
Release the Camila song, okay? It might help. So then he released the song Tailor Made Freestyle, which was one of the wildest things I've ever heard because it has AI vocals from Tupac, which Tupac's family was not happy about.
You don't
and also
say.
Snoop Dogg, who is alive.
Yeah, he's around. Also, by the way, call him up. He's like, yeah, I've got an extra 10 minutes. I'll come in.
But also, Snoop is an LA-based rapper, just like Kendrick Lamar. So he's obviously not going to be on Drake's side.
Right.
So he uses AI, and it gets pulled from streaming services because Tupac's estate was like, bitch, what are you doing?
That's what estates sound like, by the way.
Yeah. Then Kendrick dropped this track just like a week later on April 30th. And this was this past weekend where the shit just started coming. This one was called Euphoria. And this one, by the way, is either this one or 616 in LA, I believe. He drops just like another track right after that. One of them was produced by Jack Antonoff.
Strange.
So that is a direct reference, obviously, to Drake bringing up Taylor. And we know that Drake and Taylor have a friendship with each other. Like, they were posting photos together all the time and everything. But it seems just so funny to get Jack Antonoff involved in this rap beef
right
between the two of them. I love that Jack Antonoff just wants to be involved in everything.
And he fucking is. Jesus, we're going on like year 40 of him just producing every single thing. He's like our Quincy Jones. I still haven't put it together yet.
And also when you try and figure out the Madam Web of all of this, it's just like Drake and Taylor being friends. And it's like, well, maybe Taylor's upset with him now, or maybe Jack just did it and doesn't really care about Taylor's relationship with Drake. But Taylor obviously has a relationship with both Drake and Kendrick Lamar. So I don't know. There's just a humor to me in Jack Antonoff hopping into the studio.
It's a huge question mark. It's really strange. Yeah.
On 616 in LA, he goes after the OVO record label. He says, have you ever thought OVO is working for me? He calls Drake a fake bully. Says, I hate bullies. You must be a terrible person. Everyone inside your team whispering that you deserve it.
Interesting. So it's like everybody's laughing at you and you don't even know.
There's a mole.
Season 2 coming to Netflix soon, by the way. I'm really excited about that.
And so Drake then makes a song called Family Matters. Great show.
Oh, please. Kelly Shaneen Williams as Laura. Underrated comedy performance.
I rewatched Family Matters recently, and let me tell you, if you showed someone the pilot of Family Matters and then showed them the series finale of Family Matters, they would wonder if you were showing them a different show.
No, it's like it turned sci-fi. It turned every other genre. It was
Urkel's not even in the pilot, by the way.
No, they made a complete 180 once Urkel appeared as a guest player. They're like, what if the whole show was about this? Sorry, Judy Winslow.
So Drake's song Family Matters makes allegations that Kendrick Lamar has beaten up his wife.
Right. This is what this whole thing is seriously scandalous about. Like both these people making abuse allegations at each other. Yeah.
And then Kendrick released Meet the Grams, where one, he lays out rumors that Drake takes Ozempic.
The pettiness. I mean, it's just 90% of Hollywood is on Ozempic at this point.
Which, by the way, when you break up the fact that everyone sort of hates Drake. This takes you back to Megan Thee Stallion's song, Hiss. She talks about people hating on BBLs, but they're walking around the same sort of surgery scars. She talks about someone, sort of pretending to be bad when they're not really, and, in other people's hoods. And this started making everybody online sort of realize that Hiss was probably a Drake diss track and had nothing to do with Nicki Minaj.
And you need to be really clear about that because Nicki is, shall we say, easily activated.
She's listening.
What
She's
we call
Frasier.
a landmine.
She's Frasier. Queen Radio is firing up right now.
And it is, they use a crank to start it.
So the reason that Nicki Minaj probably thought that Hiss was about her, because she has the line, "These hoes don't be mad at Megan, these hoes mad at Megan's Law."
Ooh,
which is the reference to, you having to sort of alert people where you are when you're a sex offender.
Yes.
In regarding children and such. Look, Kendrick Lamar alleges that Drake is basically a pedophile.
He says the word pedophile.
He says pedophile.
Here it is. Here's the allegation. Pedophile.
Several times.
Yes.
First, it was that Drake likes going after young women. But then really, he's like, him and Harvey Weinstein should be in a cell for the rest of their lives. He's got sex offenders on his record label OVO that he keeps on a monthly allowance. And so then the following evening, Kendrick Lamar releases Not Like Us when you think all this shit is over. I was truly at a dinner with someone enjoying like some Mexican food, Cinco de Mayo weekend, etc. Yes. And I am walking home from the East Village, taking my time, and the track is just like, I see the tweets where this track is dropped, and then I get home and I play it on YouTube. It was like, the way this shit just kept dropping.
No,
it's truly unheard of.
The sky is falling. Chicken Little has been summoned.
He had alluded to grooming allegations before, but now he's like, Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not ever go to Cell Block 1. Basically just sort of like, there's been things online before, by the way, about Drake preferring women who are younger.
Well, there's like the Millie Bobby Brown thing. Right?
Yeah, the Millie Bobby Brown thing was always weird.
Yeah. I assume that's what's interesting to me about this is like, it seems to be playing on the public knowledge about that while also implying there's something else going on that we don't know about. What is there? I mean, it could just be all about that.
And there's also been like a video circulating of him at an old concert when I think he was like 20 something and like kissing a girl on stage who's 17. So
what do you think Dancing Queen is about? I'm sorry. I don't mean to tolerate this. Yeah. Listen to the lyrics. It's right in the chorus.
I love rock and roll. Joan Jett said he must have been about 17.
Oh.
What's going on here?
Oh, that's interesting. And she was also plying the jukebox with dimes. So it was actually the 1910s at the time.
She's Fonzie.
Yeah.
She's Fonzie's mother.
Is Fonzie.
Yes. She's Fonzie's mother.
Yeah.
That's the spin-off series. And then I don't really know how to explain this track, The Heart 6, that Drake dropped in response. But when someone alleges that you are maybe a pedophile, maybe you should not release a diss track response that's sort of like, you think I'm a pedophile because you were molested as a child. That's why you're focused on it.
That truly feels like something said in the first episode of Pen 15, where the girls absolutely blow up their social... Like, didn't that happen? They're like, your dad's dead, or whatever. They screamed at them. Oh, that's so bad.
This is like, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia sort of insult. This is... that. It's like... And then he alleges that I'm too famous to be a pedophile. I'd be in jail if that had occurred. And it's like,
let the record show. Let the record show. There's a few of them. Yeah.
You sound like you're on Law and Order SVU.
Yeah.
Okay. Like,
speaking of Mariska.
This is the final act. You are yelling in an interrogation room. I'm too famous for that.
Also, so, I mean, like, how much longer can this go? I mean, like, how deep can they make these allegations at each other? It seems like they've already gone to the end. Like, how much further can you possibly go?
Yeah, I feel like you've already said enough about each other. And it's all this stuff that, I mean, we're at this point now where obviously people have been enjoying the rap beef, but the shit got dark very quickly. And now there was a drive-by shooting outside of Drake's place, and a security guard was shot.
Oh, yes, this is a literal shooting. Yes.
Yeah, literal shooting. And so this is giving like real Tupac Biggie rap beef vibes. And it's, I don't know. Also just going back and forth about people being molested, which, by the way, the whole thing about Drake's response is it seemed to be culled from tweets and threads online. He's a very online person, because the whole molestation thing, if you even listen to the song that he brings this up in, Mother I Sober, off of Kendrick Lamar's most recent album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, he talks about he wasn't molested himself. He said his mother was, and that's why she was sort of extra careful around him and other relatives so that it wouldn't happen to him. So he's going off information like from completely reading a song wrong.
Okay. Confusing and dark still.
And so much of the other stuff, you know, there's a whole thing about like he maybe has another secret child out there, like an 11-year-old daughter. And Drake alleges that he leaked this information to Kendrick's crew so that he would release a fake diss track. Girl, like, truly, what are we doing here?
And also, what would be the good of that? Okay, now he's about to make a joke about you having an extra kid, and now a lot of people believe it. Like, you didn't win.
Yeah. So basically, the back and forth is that his song, Not Like Us, granted, he does keep calling Drake a pedophile. And it is a little dark in lyrical content, but man, that is a club track.
I was going to say, listenable music. I mean, there's a reason it's charting. And also, I'm sorry to like, I truly don't think awards are what's most important, but you can hear the Pulitzer in some of these lyrics, you know?
Yeah, why would you fight with a Pulitzer Prize winner?
Right. I'm not up there being like, Doris Lessing, come on down and get what's yours, asshole.
And I think the bigger just sort of takeaway in this is a lot of people know a lot of shit about people within the industry, I guess, and I guess it served you to be an asshole to everybody, because once Drake was an asshole to everybody and then his music fell off, then people were like, okay, well, you know what? Now we can come after you. Right.
Though, again, it is my dream for Taylor Swift to give up on the fandom and relatability she has and just be a fucking dick. And like maybe ruin her entire empire, but man, what a way to go.
Are we also headed towards Drake's Reputation era?
His whole fucking career's been the Reputation era.
That's fair. That's fair.
Can we get out of it for once? Yeah.
It's always, I don't know what I want from both of them. I will say I have enjoyed this sort of energy from Kendrick Lamar. Yeah. And it would be nice to have him making music again that I feel bad about this. It's just like, I've always been a Drake fan.
Well, also, you've said before that Kendrick is just not your style.
He's not really my style.
Yeah.
You know, I'm barely conscious most of the day. I can't listen to conscious rappers.
Right. It's overcompensating. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me lay in my casket and listen to Hotline Bling. Turn my brain off.
It is just nice to see somebody be like pugnacious in terms of releasing music. You know, like we're so used to like a slow rollout of music. So for somebody to just take a weekend and be like, actually, I'm going to keep hitting this button and keep releasing is like, I don't want to say life affirming based on how grim this feud is, but it's just nice to see someone work and work hard and be, you know, the best.
Yeah. Get your fucking ass up and work.
Kim Kardashian.
Yeah. I mean, he was releasing tracks quicker than it takes us to record this fucking podcast.
No, look how slow we're going. Shit. We're not getting anything done.
Anyway, it's all been fun, but then there's also, you know, the darkness of trading pedophilia allegations and abuse allegations, which I don't think any serious reporter has sort of really dug into yet. So this is all just sort of like conjecture on both sides, but I'm waiting for someone to, so we can have real facts about them.
I also, because you know who's going to weigh in soon is lawyers. I mean, these allegations are very crazy. So,
and also, you know, I'm not too semantic yet, but you know, like there's a difference between Drake, like, you know, liking younger girls, which is creepy in and of itself, and then when you throw out the word pedophile, particularly in this world that we live in now of, you know, like Pizzagate and shit like that, that turns into, okay, Drake and OVO and everyone related to him is running a secret pedophile ring.
Right.
And then that turns crazy people online into crazy people IRL who start killing people.
Right. No, it's there's a disquiet about the whole thing. I don't like where it's going to end up. Yes.
Yeah. He should call up Chrissy Teigen. Remember when they were Pizzagating her?
Oh my God.
She seems fine now.
Right.
She seems okay now, to be honest. But yeah, that shit was every celebrity attached with that. Like, it was horrendous seeing that constant. Like, I couldn't respond to a tweet of hers without someone being like, "What are you doing talking to this?" I'm like, girl, calm down, Martha in Idaho.
No,
okay?
I mean, think of like the things that have been said about Hillary Clinton, when what people should really be talking about is if she wins a Tony for this Suffs musical, which she's a producer of, she will be 3/4 of the way to EGOT.
Well, let me tell you something, Louis. Suffs ain't winning no Tony.
Don't you see that? You know what's tough? The word Suff. I do not like to hear it.
Shout out to Travis Helwig, who's a producer on it, though.
We love him.
Him and Jen Statsky.
We used to hang out in this very room. Yes.
Yeah. You too could go from Crooked Media to producing a Broadway musical.
We should make that instructional video as we're stuck here in this room still.
The Carpenters Live. All right. When we are back, we will be joined by the fantastic Sarayu Blue. This week's guest, it is an honor to have on the show. I mean, the three of us have followed each other online for years, and this is sort of us finally meeting. She has been in Hollywood for over 2 decades, most recognizable for her tremendous work in I Feel Bad, Never Have I Ever, and Blockers. And if you somehow didn't love her from all of that, you'll definitely adore her in her latest role opposite Nicole Kidman in the miniseries Expats. Please welcome to Keep It, Sarayu Blue.
I mean, that is incredibly generous and kind, and you're truly your biggest fans. That's not true. I can't say that because you have so many big fans. One of many big fans.
We're thrilled to have you here. And also, I loved watching Expats, which when this show starts out, these are some of the most perturbed characters I've seen in a limited series in some time. I'm like, oh God, will I be able to get through this? But it's the drama of it is fabulous. What did you think when you first read Expats? Did you know Nicole was going to be involved? What was your whole history with the project?
Yes, I definitely knew both Nicole and Lulu were involved and part of the project. And when I auditioned, I hadn't seen the scripts yet, which is pretty common with something of this caliber and at my level. And I was reading the scripts, and I remember just over and over again going, oh my God. Like, it's such rich material. I don't just mean rich because the people are rich. I mean, it's so nuanced and layered and really just such a wildly deep world, and then I guess for me to be a part of it felt really surreal too, because, as you know from some of the projects you've listed, I sort of got known for doing comedy. And so often once they decide you can do one thing, there aren't a lot of opportunities to veer into a different direction. So the whole thing felt really surreal.
I love how much people have really just sort of enjoyed this series and sort of like really just taken it on, given it its own life. And you, for your whole career after this too. I just sort of feel like there was a moment where all of a sudden everybody was talking about this show and you. So how did that feel to just like sort of go from, I mean, we'll get to it, obviously, you know how we do on this show, talking about your previous credits and things that we love, but you have been in so many things, and it feel like, was this show, did it feel like a tipping point for you, for your career in Hollywood?
It feels kind of like one of these things where you stop believing in the tipping point, right? Like you sort of are like, there's no big break. There's no thing. You just kind of keep showing up and keep going, which is, if you're lucky. If you're lucky, you get to keep showing up and keep getting going and keep going. But I feel like with this, it felt so monumental. I mean, the scope of it just felt so big. And so it was kind of like, how could it not feel as big? I mean, to finally feel an ounce of, it's emotional to feel like people get to see what you can do. So few of us get that shot, this moment that you get to go, yeah, I have these other muscles that haven't just gotten to be worked in a while, and they exist. And to have people sort of acknowledge that was really moving, and I felt really thankful, to be honest.
I am sorry first that we've not had Lulu Wang on this show, and I'm always curious about her as a creator. What was it like working with her on Expats?
Lulu was amazing. She was really, she was, first of all, one of the main reasons I had this shot. She really believed in me. She wanted me for the role. She championed me. So did Nicole, which is what it takes. It takes people really fighting for you. And particularly when you're not a name, for them to go, well, why would we want to give that person this enormous lead role? And so that was really incredible. And then to work with her is really fun because I always say she has these instincts that are just so sharp. And so you'd have these moments with her on set where both of us were kind of like, why is this not working? Let's find it. And she'd just kind of go, you know what? You don't need that line. I don't like that word. Like, it's all just this intuition. And suddenly, sometimes I'd even resist it. We all have moments where we're like, I don't know. Is that what it is? And then I would just sort of go, you know what? Just trust her. Because she knows this. She knows it down, on a cellular level. And every time I would, it was just, there was the take. There was the entire scene right there. It's just, she's really, really, and she's very generous too, in the sense of like, if I had those really raw moments, like in the hospital scene with my dad or in the elevator episode, the set's really quiet. And she's like, okay. And then she'll kind of let you do a few takes, and then she'd kind of come over and she'd tiptoe and be really gentle with it. And then she'd go, how about this? And we'd go again. And there's an incredible sensitivity there, which I really appreciated.
If I'm thinking about, just your muscles as an actress, you're doing this series, obviously, but, you've been on Bones, you've done Big Bang Theory, you've been in so many forms of just television, different genres, from multicam to regular comedy to drama. It's sort of, how do you keep yourself, I guess, able to do all of these things? Is there one that you prefer?
I think I'm able to keep myself in the game because I love it too much. and it's a problem, and I wish I could break up with it all the time. Like, I always say that the acting industry is like that really shitty boyfriend who just keeps giving you the bare minimum. And, every time you're like, that's it, I am done. We're not doing this shit anymore. He comes back and he's like, baby, please. And you're like, you know what? He looks so cute when he says those words. And you just keep, and it's that for me. And so I stay in the game because there's also this element of like, I painted myself into a corner. What am I going to do now? I can't pivot now. Like, I stayed with him so long. And then, as far as like what I love the most, I will always love comedy. I love it. I think there is such a dance to it. There's such a rhythm to it. There's such a making people laugh is what keeps me moving. It keeps me waking up in the morning. However, what I loved about Expats was getting to play a role that I could dig in and have so many layers and give you this really dimensional, complicated, flawed woman. And that's exactly what I loved about I Feel Bad. She was petty and flawed and a mess, and so was Hillary. So there's this just deep connection even between the two.
I must ask about Nicole Kidman for a second, because
Sure.
I'm always, when I think about how people have received her, once upon a time, Joan Rivers described her as one of the silliest people she had ever met. And to me, that doesn't read almost ever, even though, we were talking about her career last week, actually, because of her AFI award. And I said, she has this like Liv Ullmann quality where it's just like a porcelain vulnerability. It's like, how can that person also be silly? What was your experience working with her? And I assume there must have been some museum exhibit quality to watching this person work and wondering how her process is, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that because silly is literally a word I described her as in one of my interviews like a few months ago.
Oh, okay.
And I remember my friends being like, silly? And I was like, no, I know. It's the word. Trust me, it makes sense. I don't know how to explain it. But it's because she has this disarming ability the minute you meet her to just being like, hi. And you're like, oh, okay, so we're going to do it this way. Where it's just like, we're just two people just like pretending that we're the same doing our jobs. And it's great because you kind of have to be able to have that quality. I mean, I do in order to be able to do my job with her. I cannot play her best friend in a series and also be mooning over her in the scene, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's just not
That's how I would go. Yeah.
Well, it's just not quality storytelling. That being said, in the noodle shop scene, I will never forget, she's doing this really riveting monologue, and, you know, in her just uber intense, but so compelling and like human way. And as she's delivering this monologue, there's just a moment where I was like, oh fuck, I gotta be in the scene. I can't be Sarayu. I have to be like, and I'm confident that coverage they couldn't use exists somewhere, because it is really that magnificent to watch her. I mean, she's not even human. It's above humanity. It's like ethereal, you know?
It does feel like we watch Nicole Kidman to sort of aspire to the kind of humanity she brings. Like, it's just not, it's very uncommon.
It's so, I don't even know how to explain it. It's so magnetic. Like, even at the AFI thing, watching the breadth and the history of her trajectory and range, and you just see it from when they played that clip of her at, what was it, 14, 15? She was like, it was her first movie ever, and she's equally brilliant. Like, somehow she didn't need to go to grad school like the rest of us. Like this guy. So I mean, it was pretty incredible, I have to say.
Which reminds me, you and I are both University of Iowa alums, which is mind-boggling to me.
I know. But then, and also, we're all Midwesterners because Ira, Wisconsin.
I'm from Wisconsin. Yeah, Madison, right?
I'm from Madison.
And I'm from Milwaukee.
Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a Big Ten circus up in here.
Listen, we're just a few Midwesterners really living the dream.
A few big football fans doing our best out here. But I'm always curious how acting education continues to influence somebody who is now just working nonstop. Do you find yourself going back to what you've learned fundamentally in school ever, or is it just embedded in who you are and you have those tools at your disposal now?
I think I'm constantly going back to it. I remember coming out of grad school, and one of like the people who had graduated a few years ahead of me was like, you're not going to get it for like another, 7 years. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you. Like, I just did like 4 years of grad school and I'm good now. Like, I got it, I didn't actually think I was good yet. But there was this element of like, I don't need your condescension. And then now being out for as long as I have been, which is longer than 3 or 4 years, and there are so many times that I remember something an acting teacher said, or I have a moment of, God, I can't figure out this scene. How do I like connect with it? And again, I'm using some old tool that I had, packed away in a file box in the garage for, a while. So it has proven really valuable. However, there's also a part of me that's like, I personally have found there are times where there's like a little too much training for me. I'm not going to speak to anyone else's process, but where like, I don't want to get so formed and obsessed with somebody else's system. Like, I always want to be able to be free to play and trust my own instincts, because for me, if I'm constantly trying to like, just get down Grotowski or get down, Stanislavski, or just really nail one of these methods, sometimes I leave myself out of the process. So I kind of have to be like, Sarayu, like, what do you think? What feels right in this moment? Do that. I don't care if anyone else thinks it's right. Just do that.
I'm always curious about that. I'm always curious about that because it feels like acting is so intensely personal. And when people can take on a process that's so outside what they are and so, I just words on a page that somebody else has written sometimes over 100 years ago, I'm really awed by that. It's just like to internalize it.
I think there's something about it I love. I mean, I can nerd out about theater way too much, and it's not extremely sexy, but I can do it. But it's one of those things that it's like, I love it. I will talk about acting. I will talk about theater all day, every day. And I really had to release it in order to get good at it. I just had to be able to let it go.
Yeah, I mean, grad school, it'll do a number on you, too,
Yeah.
And I truly remember, there's just something about being in this space where you're being creative with everybody and you are feeling like, whether you're good or not, or whether you're feeling great, it's just sort of, you're in this microcosm that isn't the industry. And it's like, I remember people being like, oh yeah, you're good, you know, thinking like this person's gonna get a job like immediately. I'm like, I moved to LA and then it took 7 years, you know, and people who were worried about me getting a job before them were like getting staff like in a year, you know, and it's that stuff happens.
So random, and the problem is you're in the microcosm, but you think it's real. You're like, you are like, nobody told you you're living on Big Brother. Everyone,
exactly.
Everyone is operating like, if you're doing it here, that's how it's going to be out there. And then you get out there, and all your friends who were so insanely talented, for whatever reason, didn't land an agent right away. And some moron did, you know, or somebody who you never expected got the, like, lucky ticket. And so you're like, oh, wait a minute. It was all bullshit. And people can tell you that while you're in the microcosm, but you don't believe it until you live it.
And I mean, I went to school, I mean, drinking game for Keep It, NYU, in New York. But it's like, it's also different to be in that microcosm in New York, where you're in the city being creative, and then you get to LA. Anytime you go to acting or whatever school, I think you move to LA, it's a whole different ball game.
It's a whole different, well, and I went to ACT in San Francisco, and what I did love about ACT was they taught a bunch of methods. So everyone could kind of find what felt more right for them, and I did appreciate that, I will say. They weren't like, we only do Stanislavski.
I want to ask, now, you've been in so many TV shows, and so many of them that I've watched so many of them. I just want to know, is there a particular, like, guest spot or some show that you were on where you're just like, you do think back on that really fondly? Maybe you learned something from, I don't know, the set of Franklin and Bash or something, you know, like, what's something where you, like, you could maybe look back at and you're like, you know what, that was a great experience that has kind of informed things that I continue to do as an actor?
Yes, and it was Veep. I mean, I want to say, I loved doing Franklin and Bash. That crew, they were all so kind. I mean,
I love that show.
It was so fun. And Mark, Paul, and Brecken had such great chemistry. They were insane together. I loved doing it. I loved working with Kumail. And like, but Veep was one of those experiences where, you know, it was unreal to do this role opposite Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And I mean, I say opposite. I was like a small little doctor role. It was not like a major, but there were so many heavy hitters on that show between, you know, like I'm Gary Cole and like, you know, I mean, it was like Sam Richardson and oh my God, I'm forgetting Timothy Simons. You know what I mean? Like it was just heavy, just geniuses upon geniuses. And I remember doing this scene with Julia Louis-Dreyfus and all of them in the hospital, and I pitched a joke. And I remember doing the rehearsal, and you know, because it's all like so many oneers and like single cam or whatever, so they're really just doing everything continuously, so you cannot miss a beat. Like as this like one day guest star, I better not miss a fucking moment. And I remember like doing the rehearsal, and she goes, I can't remember who had the line. Somebody was starting to say a line, and she goes, "Wait, you're gonna make that joke, right? You're gonna say that one line about the burgers?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Okay, say it." And I did, and she goes, "Okay." And then she goes, "That's funny, by the way." And like the way that I hold that to my heart. And it lets me just feel like, okay, maybe I can stay acting.
I like how that is both a compliment and terrifying.
Yeah.
Like in that moment, yes, you did nail it right now.
Yeah, that's funny, by the way.
Yeah.
It was so, because her instincts, again, like she knows what works. She knows she has it down to a science. So like, it's like, just so you know, you did get that right. Let's keep it moving. We don't have a lot of time. You know, like it's so, it was an amazing moment, truly.
No, I mean, I work for Jimmy Kimmel, and like you'll put a script in front of him, and he will it seems like he's only doing a passing glance at it, but he's already made like 6 decisions. Like some people at the top of their game are operating at a level that is just extremely fast.
Yeah. Yeah. It is one of those moments where you're just like, oh, you're what they call a pro.
Yeah.
I understand now. Yes.
Yeah.
So Julia Louis-Dreyfus comes up. Are there any other actors you've had comedy scenes with that you remember particularly enjoying?
I mean, there's so many. I loved working with Paul Adelstein on I Feel Bad. I mean, he and I had, and Madhur Jaffrey, who played my mom, who played this like, thanks to Amy Poehler and Asim Batra, who, you know, created the show. They like, Asim really wrote this character of this Indian mom who was so gangster. I mean, she was so funny and just ridiculous and edgy and just all the things I think of for a South Asian mom that is rarely embodied. That's rarely what we see, you know? Like, I feel like that was one of my favorites. And also not comedy, but working with Alfred Molina on Monday mornings. He was somebody who really showed me what it looks like to be the leader of a set. I mean, he knew everybody's names. He never was late. He knew every line. And I remember he had this huge monologue one time. And afterwards, you know, we had finished his coverage and we were breaking for lunch or whatever, turning around or something. And we were walking away and he just kind of turned behind. He goes, "Was that all right?" And I was like, "Are you asking me?" Like, this is my first series regular. I'm 5 years. I don't know if it seemed great. How could you not be great? You're Alfred Molina. It was, you know, it's just one of those moments that you really realize nobody ever feels like they nailed it.
Also, by the way, that's a David E. Kelly show, correct?
Yeah.
I'm always curious about him because for somebody who has made that much television, he is an enigma to me. Like, I know you're Mr. Michelle Pfeiffer, and you created Big Little Lies and every other TV show, and I don't have a sense of you as a personality.
Yeah, well, he likes to be enigmatic. I mean, he really is like, if it's up to me, none of you know who I am. But I guess you're going to have to know my name, so that's all you get. That's all you get.
I mean, thank you so much for being here. I also have to say, like, I mean, obviously, I said I've seen so many of these shows. I really loved you on The Real O'Neills. That was a show that I was obsessed with.
That, and you had Martha on recently.
Yeah,
I mean, Marcia
we did.
was the character I played.
Yes. Yeah, we had Martha on. And, I mean, I loved that show. So
I loved it too. And it was a great set. And I can't believe it didn't keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, I can.
You know.
Martha needs to stay on TV too. I love her. She's nailed it. She used to be one of my favorite movie stars, and she was great in Mass a couple of years ago. But she nails every TV role too. Loved her in Raising Hope, etc. Yeah,
she's just truly a genius. I remember seeing her in Libertine with John Malkovich at the Libertine at Steppenwolf, and it was like, I mean, she and John Malkovich, man, what a couple.
Intimidating
what a
people.
Actors.
Yes, yeah. John
No,
Malkovich, woo, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't think I could actually be on a set with John Malkovich. I'd probably crumble. I would not survive that.
I would just have the Malkovich from being John Malkovich stuck in my head the whole time.
Yeah, bring puppets around him.
Yeah,
I
just hear Malkovich in my head the whole time. I would be able to do nothing.
That's it. There is no, exactly. Okay. Well, we've literally just taken ourselves out of any Malkovich profit. Single-handedly. Listen, thank you so much.
Oh my God, such a pleasure to meet. I hope we see each other in person sometime. You're such
please.
Fabulous. Yeah.
Fashion's biggest night was last night, Louis, and I do mean Fashion's night out. Do you remember that?
You sound like three correspondents at once.
Do you remember Fashion's night out?
Kind of. What is that?
It was where sort of like the designers and things would have just like parties within the city. I believe it was in New York and it was in LA too, circa like 2009 to 2011.
Yes, where we came of age. Yes.
Yeah. But no, the Met Gala was last night. The one day a year we all gather to ask Rihanna about something other than the album we're never getting from her.
Right. You do get a nice dress from her every 2 years or so. Yes.
Yeah. This year's dress code was the Garden of Time and also Sleeping Beauties, Fashion, Reawakened, and Zendaya, Jennifer Lopez, Bad Bunny, and also Chris Hemsworth were the co-chairs. And I teased it earlier. I was making fun of Chris Hemsworth for, just his regular suit or whatever.
It was a cream-colored suit with black shoes. Yes.
Yeah, I was like, all right. When I saw that man in person at this party last night, dancing to, I think it was like Wang Chung or something.
All right. Ain't nothing wrong
everybody
with that.
had fun tonight. The man was so hot.
Again, Australia is not messing around. They put out these specimens that are, sun-dappled and extraordinary.
Yeah. So, all right, the Met Gala. First of all, it wasn't picketed.
Interesting.
Because I think that everyone who has sort of been stalling this whole Condé Nast union thing was like, oh, maybe we should come to a decision and give these people what they want before they strike at the Met Gala. Because I'm sure they were like, given the writer's strike and then the SAG strike, there were plenty of actors and people who probably would not have crossed that picket line.
Yeah. Oh, certainly. Definitely. But mostly all the Met Gala regulars showed up. You had Nicole Kidman wearing, I'm going to say it, my least favorite gown she's ever worn to a Met Gala. Or maybe ever.
Really?
The thrill of the dress was supposed to be it was kind of full in the front, like it looked kind of pregnant looking. So she had to kind of hold the bump as she walked around. That was her one available pose. I don't know. Sometimes avant-garde is avant-garish, and that's what that was to me.
I mean, speaking of pregnancy bump, there was Lea Michele.
Love her new project. Yeah. Which I can rarely say. Yeah.
I want to talk about people who I did really enjoy before we get into sort of the night. But there's Zendaya, of course, who always fucking stuns on a carpet. I feel like she needs, speaking of sleeping beauties, this bitch needs a long nap.
She is out and about and promoting it on any continent.
Dude, challengers, the red carpet's tired of her.
Right. I will say, I feel like she's kind of working at a deficit right now because her look at the Dune premiere, that metallic kind of C-3PO sex god outfit, was so spectacular and so state-of-the-art that everything that's following it now is, pretty and presentable, but not giving me that verve I got from that outfit. And her two looks this night, she wore two different kind of flowery arrangements, and the first one had a real Black Swan sort of makeup presentation. Seems sort of like standard for her. I didn't think they were extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, the first one was Margiela Couture, and then the other one was Givenchy. But it was, I don't know, we've seen so many amazing moments, like you said, from Zendaya. And, when you get a fabulous moment like Rihanna at the Met Gala, it's always, Rihanna is shutting down the Met Gala, and it's iconic, right? And for Zendaya, it's been, girl, you've been having to give us iconic every other day. And so
simply not that many things can be iconic. It's just not how the brain works.
But I mean, I always just love seeing her in general. So I can't be mad at it.
Can I say something about the Met Gala in general? There's a category of tweet I cannot stand, and I will read one right now. Every year, a bunch of celebrities go to the Met Gala dressed as wind chimes or whatever, and we all tweet incredible while we try to figure out how to get health insurance. Why do people only have revelations like this when, like, a celebrity event involving women happens? They never have this thought when, like, the Super Bowl is going on. I feel like people are always dressing this condescension towards women getting attention, basically, as some important stance, when really it's like, guys, there are plenty more garish corporate middle of pop culture things. Like again, I'm going to bring up the Super Bowl again. People are paid $500 million to catch a ball. You understand that, right? I mean, whereas also it's like, I get that these are famous celebrities and they're walking around in pretty dresses and that's the thrill for a viewer. It also is art a little bit. There also is something to criticize. There also is some, I don't know, pleasure beyond we're watching rich people be rich. And I feel like people act really dense about that and want to have a huge point about what are we doing with humanity when there's all this crap going on in the world. I'm sorry, you need two different brains here. I think prettiness has a place in the world, and I think shaming people for, I don't know, wearing a Givenchy dress and going out in public, it's like, so would you prefer that not to exist at all, ever? Would that make the world better for you? I just can't stand that kind of condescension, and I think it's generally misogynist.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of things going on in the world, there's a lot of interesting outfits on the carpet because a lot of them were John Galliano. That's
a problem, sure.
Yeah. And, Anna had originally wanted it to be, it was leaked, or that they had wanted it to be an exhibition of John Galliano's work. But I think if you recall, in 2011, he was fired from Dior for being a little anti-Semitic. You know, would you describe saying, I love Hitler and people like you would be dead, your mothers, your forefathers would all be fucking gassed to a group of Jewish diners at a Paris bistro? Would you consider that anti-Semitic? I mean, if you've seen that video, it's wild.
Oh, just really ambiguous statements. It's a lot. You have to really interpret it to get to the meaning there. Unbelievable.
Yeah, so, I mean, John Galliano designed Kim Kardashian's dress, and, you know, a lot of people were sort of, once they found out that the intended idea was to sort of honor him in the first place, but then they didn't do it, a lot of people were just sort of wearing Galliano.
There's also a lot of people just wearing whatever the fuck they wanted. 'Cause I feel like at the Met Gala, people just abandon the theme altogether. They get sick of it. J-Lo just wore a standard, unbelievably silver J-Lo thing, which I kind of applaud when people go off theme and just do their, because whatever, like wow us whatever way you can. Like the theme's not necessarily important. I would have liked if she tried a little bit. I don't know. It felt like she could have worn that to anything.
Yeah, I think that at a certain point, the sort of vibe last night, and from people online and from people just sort of at parties that I went to after, were, I don't know, this year felt very not good in terms of people and their looks. And it's just sort of, I don't know, maybe just pick a designer or maybe pick some other theme, like camp. That was fun. At least, you know, you got to see people try and attempt camp.
And then you get to scream at them for doing it wrong. That was really exciting. Yeah. Lots for us to do. Yeah. I felt like in general, this year's Met Gala felt standard. Like what we had seen versions of this opulence before, versions of like people are always kind of wearing floral things. So it didn't really feel like much of an occasion to center it around that look.
Also, florals for spring.
Exactly. The ground is not broken, shall we say.
It seemed like it could have been a red carpet for anything.
Right. I did appreciate how Tyla looked. That I thought was one of the most sumptuous looks of the night. It was just this very form-fitting kind of beigey oatmeal look. And also her makeup was just so stunning, too. That was like the appearance of a new celebrity. I also want to say that Cole Escola, who fresh off their run in Oh Mary at the Lortel Theater, is now moving to Broadway. Cole appeared in just shock white, looking kind of like a ghost as in a Scooby-Doo episode. It was exactly right. It was so fabulous. You kept being like, who the fuck is that? Who has the nerve to wear something like that? And it was somebody who was legitimately exciting. I love when people use the Met Gala to illustrate that there is actually something exciting about them and not just that they are wearing exciting clothes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people wearing Tom Brown, and it can sort of be, okay, we've seen this before, but Cole really made it their own. And it was sort of, I think you had a tweet about that too, just sort of, we're used to getting the biggest stars at the Met Gala, but it's so much fun seeing someone like Cole, who is becoming like a known entity in their own right, just sort of do a turn at the Met Gala. It's like, I can also serve, and you're serving better than people who should know better.
And who serve for a living, right?
Yeah.
So to show up and just kind of stand in your space that you're finally being given and say, well, isn't this interesting? Again, the fabulous thing about events like this is it is an opportunity to be fascinating. We can be fascinating with you, especially Sarah Jessica Parker, who literally wore a fascinator.
Yeah, I mean, okay, like she pulled that out of the And Just Like That set.
Right. It felt like she could have gotten married in that outfit in one of the Sex and the City movies. Yeah.
Honestly, the best part about the Met Gala for me is just sort of how it takes over New York, and it's sort of fun to go to parties afterwards. Obviously, if you're a big celebrity, you're walking the carpet. That's sort of the point of going to the Met Gala for me, to be honest. You can buy tickets, and plenty of people do. And obviously, there's business people and other sort of executives and stuff or whatever. They have their tables, etc. there. But I just feel like unless you're on the carpet, you're missing the fun of it. So it's sort of, I like the fact that there are parties and you get invited to them, and then you can go there and like you're with your friends who are sort of either in whatever industry. It sort of feels like it sort of feels like Oscar or Emmy night in LA, you know, where there are multiple parties going on and you're sort of hopping back and forth to them. But these are sort of a little easier to get into in New York if you at least are connected anyway in nightlife, you know?
I like that it's a formal occasion, but also it's about frivolity too.
Yes.
Like, you know, there's like always a layer of, and you can be subversive, or you can be loud, or you can be classy. Like there's lots of opportunity to express actual personality.
Yeah, so I went to the Boom Boom Room, which always has a party. Last year it was Janelle Monáe. This year it was FKA Twigs hosted party sponsored by Hennessy. And I was like, I don't know what this ethereal bitch has to do with Hennessy, but I loved it.
Yeah, but you fit right in. Yeah.
And she was, instead of doing like a performance, she had someone come up and doing like shouts on the mic, and it was basically like inviting anybody who knew how to Vogue to come down to the dance floor and vote for her. And she was just dancing around, having a fucking great time watching.
Oh, so
voting.
Vanessa Hudgens came right up.
It was sneaker night.
Sneaker night is a Met Gala theme. Please, God. I don't feel like we have ever really talked about sneaker night on this show. Guys, if you do not know this single from Vanessa Hudgens, which is truly a song styled around the fun of wearing sneakers, with the chorus, basically, what is it?
Basically, what we're going to do is dance. It'll come easily when you hear the beat.
Basically, as the first word in a chorus.
The
nerve.
The way she starts that song out with the sort of call to arms, put your sneakers on. That is a work of art. Honestly, my favorite memory of sneaker night is when we were writing in the Q-Force writers room. I think that Gabe Liedman had never seen it. So we sort of just stopped the day to watch the sneaker night video.
And do you ever really recover from that? It's such a mind-blowing. Like, I would say the vibe of the song is Chester Cheetah in a commercial. That's anyway.
That party was fun. The weird thing about these parties is that basically there were a lot more this year because celebrities love to get a check for doing nothing.
Sure.
So there are all these things all over the city, but I went from that one, and then I went to Dua Lipa's party. She had one last year, and this year was fun, but this one was really more of a, like I said, it was ounce vibes. There was sort of fog. So this one, you really couldn't tell what celebrities were sort of there. I mean, I saw like Alex Edelman coming out of the fog, leaving at one point, but he's at every fucking party.
Also, honorary Tony winner. We should congratulate Alex Edelman.
Yeah, special Tony.
I also want to say I enjoy the idea of a fog at a party, though. When guests get to act like, you know, Kate Bush whirling in a video, that's fun. That's kind of what being a celebrity should be.
But when there's too much fog at the rave, doesn't it feel a little bit like a battlefield in a war movie?
Yes, right. It also is lightly giving the Coconut Grove. Like, should I be getting out of this room? Yeah.
The best one I went to, though, was I was just with our friend Ty Sunderland, and we all ended up at this bar, the Mulberry, and Christian Siriano loves that bar. So I'm there with him and his boyfriend Kyle, and basically it just seems like, oh, the night's over. I'm just there with my friends. We're hanging out. And then people start arriving. I'm talking hard enough. Jeremy O'Harris, Jodie Turner, Chris Hemsworth.
Jodie Turner looked amazing at the Met
She looked
Gala.
fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Chris Hemsworth, Matt Damon.
Oh my God.
Rita Ora, Taika Waititi. This was sort of a really fun after party vibe because I feel like, you know what it's like when you go to like one of those big parties and it's sort of everyone can be there and there's other industry people. Celebrities always feel like someone's going to come up to me and ask for a photo and be annoying, you know? And this one, I feel like everyone was really just in the vibe of dancing and having fun. And I think that when you have that mix of the party's actually fun and people are just sort of having fun themselves, they're not busy standing around looking for, oh, who's there? Like I said, I was dancing next to Chris Hemsworth and didn't even realize it was him until I turned around and saw this very tall, hot Australian looking back at me.
No, I mean, it's nice that you can feel chill around people of that caliber, which again, I sort of have to credit to New York City itself. It's just a quality I ascribe to that city.
Yeah, I had a extended conversation with Jodie Turner, and she is fucking fantastic, to be honest. Gorgeous, even more gorgeous than you can imagine in person.
I loved her in that movie After Yang, which sort of came and went. It had Colin Farrell in it, but it was sort of an awards contender at the time. People should revisit that.
Yeah. Anyway, basically, I fucking enjoy the Met Gala, and I think it's fun, and I think it's one of the few like big moment things like this where it just feels like the point is to be goofy, and the point is the frivolousness, you know? So just like lean into it.
And there's no formal winners, so you can have just fun with it. It's not like the Oscars where you're waiting to, am I the best, am I not, etc.
Yeah. There are no speeches.
Yeah.
Or if there are, I don't know. Anna's probably talking.
When you're serving Bob, you're often serving a speech too.
All right. When we're back, keep it. And we're back with our favorite segment of the episode. It is Keep It. Louis?
Yes.
What's yours?
Mine is an ask of the movie industry, and I know they're out there listening. So hello, welcome, stick around. I watched this Anne Hathaway movie, The Idea of You, over the weekend with Nicholas Galitzine, and she plays a woman who just celebrates her 40th birthday, and she ends up falling in love with this pop star her daughter was once obsessed with and is now basically too old to care about, and they meet at Coachella. Here's what's interesting about this movie. Anne Hathaway is fabulous in it, which is not exactly novel. She's an awesome actress. But I want to say, in this era of anyone but you being this breakout sensation, I feel like people really want a return to form for the rom-com. And I think what we really need is to keep the rom and keep it to the com. Because there is no comedy in this movie, basically. It's like a kind of saddish romantic drama that takes place in LA. And I really liked it better that way. There was a lot to sink your teeth into. All I can say is it's a really adult movie that is also very light. And I feel like that's a really rare combination nowadays. Maybe in the 90s you would get romantic movies like that, but it felt like a specific throwback, and there's just no sideshow comedy to distract you from what's happening. Like when I think of Anyone But You, the two leads, I guess, did have some good chemistry, but really there were such broad comedy stunts going on that were just not savory. Like half that movie could have had the America's Funniest Home Videos theme playing behind it. Oh, we got dropped in the water. Oh, you're naked and have a leech on you or whatever. It was just way too broad. Whereas in this, obviously, to me, I would just still describe it as a light movie. Like if you're watching it at home, it's a movie where every once in a while you stop vacuuming and look even harder at the screen. But it's a pleasant movie in that the stakes are just this relationship. It's not, it's not a pretentious movie in any way. And I really enjoyed it. Like it also felt kind of real to me in that I feel like a 40-year-old woman could get into a relationship with a 20-something person, be sort of not care about the celebrity he's acquired or like the mania around him, and just be navigating her emotions in regards to who he actually is. It felt real to me. I was really pleased with this movie.
I really like this movie a lot too, and I felt that I also was glad that it was not giving rom-com, which, by the way, I need everyone online to just sort of learn what a rom-com is.
Right.
Because not everything with romance in it is a romantic comedy.
Yeah. And also, it's like the thing we really are longing for in terms of rom-coms is something almost specifically that Nora Ephron and Nancy Meyers brought, which is the comedy is about the witty dialogue. It's not about, we drove this car off a mountain, oops, or whatever happens in Anyone But You.
Even when you think of like sort of like My Best Friend's Wedding, when they're stealing the truck at the end or whatever, like that is as wacky as things sort of get. There aren't all these stupid gags. Like the jokes in rom-coms used to be the characters.
Totally. It was a character-based movie. I will say in My Best Friend's Wedding, that character should go to jail because she was breaking into computers and it was a bit too far.
She was definitely like Sammy Brady from Days of Our Lives. She's a manipulative bitch.
Holding a gigantic smile as she breaks into a mainframe.
We need more movies like that again. Give us movies where the character is fun and likable, but also this bitch is crazy.
No, right. Drawn into psychosis by the love of man. That I understand.
Yeah. This movie, by the way, Idea of You, was produced by Gabrielle Union.
Yes.
Who
friend to keep it.
Yeah. Love her. This movie's fucking great. Michael Showalter directed it.
He did direct the Best Actress winning The Eyes of Tammy Faye.
Jennifer Westfeldt wrote the screenplay.
Oh, that was on my mind the entire time because Jennifer Westfeldt, who is a Tony-nominated actress, and she wrote the movie Kissing Jessica Stein, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. She is the ex-wife of Jon Hamm. And in this movie, this woman who is now in her 40s talks about a difficult breakup with a guy who seems like a douchebag, all things considered. Anyway, I felt like it was promo for the fact that Jon Hamm might suck a little bit. I have no idea.
Also, I did not realize until maybe halfway from the movie that was the actor from Veep.
Reed Scott, whom I love. Yeah, he's great on Veep. Yeah. He's one of those people that never got an Emmy nomination for Veep. And I think the reason is too many other people were getting nominated, but he would have been worthy. He was always so funny on that show.
Yeah. It's also, by the way, based on this book written by actress Robin Lee, who starred with Gabrielle Union in the movie Deliver Us from Eva in 2003. So it's sort of a reunion for both of them.
Look at all the IMDbing we have done just on this one movie alone. Jesus, this is the work we put into a podcast.
These are the things you need to be thinking about when you're watching movies, by the way, because I know you have been playing Cinematrix on Vulture.
It is a disease.
Like me.
Yeah.
It is. I love that game. And it is, if you haven't played this game, there's like a grid where you get 3 actors and then there are 3 categories that you sort of have to fill out. If you go to even today's, the actors are Paul Dano, Daniel Day-Lewis, Paul Thomas Anderson, director. And then it's Oscar nominated Best Picture for each of them, release date 2005 to 2014, and 2-word title.
Ooh, that's so fun.
And the fun thing about this game is you get higher points if you get a movie for one of the categories that a lower percentage of people playing the game have picked.
Which, by the way, reminds me, I like to play this game midway through the day when more people have already played. So you're actually going up against like the correct percentages of people. Like the Family Feud survey has been filled out, so to speak.
Yeah, if you do it in the morning, you're basically competing with no one.
Or like the most zealous people who know everything about movies.
Yeah, and it is really fun to sort of test your knowledge of, do I remember like an obscure movie of someone's from like 2000 to 2009 instead of just like picking the first movie that comes to mind.
Right, like a 2-word Paul Thomas Anderson movie would be Hard 8, starring the wonderful Gwyneth Paltrow.
And what were like the 2 movies you mentioned online where you said people need to remember these because every actor's in these movies?
Oh, yes. What's great about this game is you get to use movies like Woody Allen's Celebrity, which has every celebrity, like Leonardo DiCaprio, Charlize Theron. It goes on and on. And therefore, when you need an obscure answer, you can really use it in that case. Or like The Player, movies with just a gigantic cast that maybe not everybody remembers well.
I'm still waiting to use Lions for Lambs, a movie that I've never actually seen, but I've always been obsessed with the title and the poster for it from 2007. And our guest, Sarayu Blue, is in it.
I'm always interested in the weird morass that was 2000's Meryl. She was in some of these amazing movies and then like strange movies. She took every project.
This cast is Robert Redford, Tom Cruise, Meryl Streep, Andrew Garfield, Michael Pena, Derek Luke, Peter Berg. What's going on here?
Just everybody. Yeah. It's a party. And Ira, what is your Keep It this week?
It is with a very heavy heart that I deliver this Keep It, Louis.
Oh, no.
This Keep It is to a friend of the pod.
Oh, God.
We love her work, but Zadie Smith.
Yes. A fabulous writer, generally speaking. Actually, yes. I mean, routinely a fabulous writer.
Zadie Smith penned an essay for The New Yorker titled War in Gaza, Shibboleths on Campus. And it was basically about the, sort of outbreak of protests that have been happening across campuses in America about Palestine and Gaza. And it's just, first of all, there's been a lot of talk about her fiction versus her nonfiction. And I feel like when she's in the nonfiction sphere, it's a little very verbose and hard to weed your way through. But the crux of this was basically when you're students and you're putting, things onto cardboard, when you're holding up signs or whatever, like those are essentially weapons of mass destruction. Basically, it's we're sort of in this weird point now where I feel like a lot of people are critiquing just the act of students protesting and saying things and having public political opinions in a way that feels very, I don't know, ahistorical to me.
Yes. No, I'm sorry to say that when Bernie Sanders spoke up and said, you know, you're doing great, keep going, I was relieved to hear someone say that.
Yeah.
You know?
Is this thing that happens with, I mean, it happened with Ferguson, you know, it happened with 2020 with those protests. It's just, there's always something where protests sort of happen and it's younger people protesting, and each time it's sort of like Memento. We get amnesia, and there's people, there are pundits hopping online or other politicians, and there are people on CNN or whatever going, what are these people doing? And that's not the right way to protest. And, you know, you go stand in this free speech area where it's better for you to say what you actually want to say, but like do it where we can't hear it and don't disrupt things. And it's, do you fucking know what protest is for?
And also, it feels very crazy to generalize all protesters at this thing with the same sort of sentiments or whatever, you know, and I felt like a lot of this dialogue is getting away from why people are protesting, which is a lot about divesting university funds away from things that fund Israel, etc. You know, so I don't know. The coverage of this I have found to be mind blowing and disorienting,
overblown.
And saddening. Yeah,
overblown coverage of this when there's so much other shit happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just I hate when like the news just like latches on to something that's very sensationalist, and it's, we're gonna cover this like front to back all fucking day, and this is like a fraction of actually what you should really be reporting about. And just on the Zadie Smith tip, it's just, it always feels weird to me when someone who's sort of, I don't want to use the word like elites, you know, but it's like someone who is so far removed from what is actually happening, writing about it just feels so navel-gazy.
Yeah, I would like to hear personally more from people entrenched in it. Sure.
Yeah. And I get that you maybe have an opinion on it, but do we need to hear it?
Always a good question. What were we just talking about where somebody said, oh, this is an album they needed to write. I was like, but does that mean anyone needed to hear it?
Who was that?
I wonder. Well, I felt that way about half of the Tortured Poets department. You know, like maybe these are songs she had to write, but I don't know that they needed to be received necessarily.
You know what? Did Dua Lipa have to write Radical Optimism?
I don't know. You know, she had like 150 tracks ready to go, and these were the 11 she picked. It's just surprising. I'm surprised she picked this.
Yeah, but you know what? Maybe once summer hits, maybe this is like, she does like to travel. This is music for Mallorca. And I've never been to Mallorca, but once I get there, maybe I'll love it.
The song Falling Forever, that is sort of like the best of Eurovision. It's as good as Eurovision can be, which, as you know, is a B-.
She's headlining Glastonbury, so
okay, I'm excited for that. Sure.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a lot of flags.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, that's our show this week. We covered a lot.
Yeah, no kidding. From Dua and then back to Dua.
Yeah. Thank you to Sarayu Blue for joining us.
What a fabulous
was so much
woman.
fun. Yeah. And we will see you next week.